We made it.
Are we on?
On now, yeah.
Right, sweet.
Just say that was technical difficulties. As in having someone arrive was technical
What is a
difficulty.
technical difficulty?
Alright, maybe he can
He's
check.
all the way from
Did
Bangkok.
Paul actually manage to find it?
I don't know. Well, not yet.
Oh, okay. Because then he could type in here instead. And we should do that.
Testing one Paul.
Testing 1, 2. I don't know. We'll see. Well, you wanted the white screen, right?
Yeah, it keeps me awake.
That's it here, yeah. And you want that on or what? Or this live bit?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we're here. Right, so. Whoops, something went wrong and that's not very good. Right, let's refresh that.
Oh my god.
I want to make sure that's there.
And it's think out loud, not thinking.
I believe, yeah, it is, yeah. And that's the channel name. Yeah. Right, here we are. So we said today, how do you have a conversation with somebody? So you've got a lot of personal experience with that recently. So
Yeah.
what's your answer to that then, first of all then?
Don't fucking start the conversation.
Yeah, it's
I'm
probably
good
good bet, yeah.
It's tough. I think it's tough for everyone involved, so maybe we could recognise that as a first start. No, I think, well, we've spoken about it before, but slow is key.
So it's key. So trying to step out of that kind of reactionary.
Yes, because obviously
Feelings
each
and
person
things, yeah.
wants to react. I think we're, I don't know, it seems to be a human thing that we all want to be right and fast and kind of go at it and tear each other down. So just try and calm that side of you down and slow it all down. Listen.
But do you think that's interesting that it's like a perception thing, that there is the perception that it's like a fight?
It is
And that seems to be natural. It seems to be
I think it
naturally
is,
the
yeah.
inclination to, when you step into speaking with someone, and as soon as you find out that even this, they're just slightly not on board with you or slightly not agreeing, it's like instantly becomes, okay, shit, I need to win, armor up, sort of thing, right? Weapons out, how can I beat them in this, you know?
It is natural though.
So
isn't it?
quickly, yeah, well, it appears to be. I don't know if that, like, I think a lot of that would come from the fact that we're not really teaching in school anything to do with how you're going to approach someone that you don't agree with. Because in school, there's like one right answer. And everyone's just working to try and get the one right answer, just if it's like a maths class or
Yeah.
English. It's not really like you find out, oh, this person thinks this, I think this, and they can both be a perspective and we can discuss it. It's more just like,
Yeah.
you either have the answer to the equation correct or you don't in schools. And that's the same all the way through. So there's no dispute about who's right or wrong.
No.
There's, oh, the textbook says the answer, I'm
Yeah.
correct, sort of
And
thing. And then,
you need that for the exams, so
yeah, and that's like the only geared way where like, that's the only geared learning we have. The learning we do is just, here's the answer, memorize this, and then go forward and write that down later, sort of thing. So there isn't really that lesson of disputes, lesson of how do you speak to someone when they're not going to agree with you, because they need to agree with you. You all agree this is the answer, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whatever's put in the textbook is the answer. So I think we're not really picking up those skills, or we're not getting introduced to any skills as to how we can do that, like through the education anyway.
yeah.
And we're getting to the point where we have people who are reaching adulthood or reaching older ages who have just never had any kind of conversation, any kind of discussion with someone that might have a different point of view. So
Well, I even had a conversation with my family a few days ago, and it all went to shit very quickly. And it was just funny because, like, my little sister was kind of like, oh, fucking hell, here we go again. And I was just thinking, it's funny her perception of this. Like, this is why kind of teenagers are not going to be wanting to get involved with adult conversations about politics and stuff, because when they watch the adults have these conversations, it all doesn't go well. It's not like a normal conversation. It can't just be friendly. And this one ended pretty badly, even though we were actually agreeing.
right,
But obviously,
but people are in
just
that
can't
kind
control
of
themselves. Yeah.
combative mindset. That's the problem. If you're in that combative mindset from the get-go, then naturally everything you're going to say after that point is in that kind of framing of, yeah, I need to win, I need to attack, sort of thing, isn't it? So I think the big step, you're saying slow down. I think slow down is definitely one of them, to try and not react as much,
Yeah.
but also to see it from that perspective, yeah, of like, okay, what can I learn going in from this conversation? There'll be something I can pick up from this. There'll be something I can be learning from this conversation. Like, you know, even if directly you maybe heard some of the things they've said, it's still like, what can I particularly get from this, or what can I do to illuminate my point better, rather than just trying to pick out where they've maybe said something wrong, or you know, not give people the chance to sort of re-clarify what they're saying, because that's a big one too. People will catch each other with that kind of "oh, got you" kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
So as soon as maybe you say something that isn't quite right, they'll use that as their basis for like winning the argument, winning the discussion.
Yes.
It's like, well, you don't want to win on those terms, or I don't want to win on those terms. It's almost like that would be winning on the terms of someone making a really poor mistake in a game. Like, see when if we're playing like chess or like a game, I kind of want to win on the terms that you've tried your best and I've beat your best attempt. I don't want to like win because you make a terrible move on like the first like move or the third move and you like lose your queen. It's kind of like, well, yes, obviously I'll win from here, but that's not going to be very satisfying. And we're not, and neither of us are going to learn very much from that. If I just take your queen and win the game, well, neither of us learn anything. But if I let you go back and say, okay, I didn't mean, that was a mistake, I didn't mean that, I meant to do this, then we can learn more, because the game will go longer. And in other words, in this analogy, the argument will go longer, obviously. It gives us both a chance to actually learn something from it as well.
Yeah.
So, what do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking more about chess and then realised you were using an analogy, so I was like, I'm not going to speak about chess.
Because it's an analogy, alright, okay.
No, I was going to speak about chess, and I was like, that's not what we're actually speaking
about.
about.
I meant that as an analogy.
I
think that is, because basically that is a good analogy, because chess is almost like just basically argumentation, isn't it? It's basically, I'm arguing the point.
We've both got the same tools here.
Right.
Let's see who wins.
Yeah, and we both have the information available, but it's basically, I'm arguing, when I make a move, I'm basically saying, this will beat you. This argument, if I do this, see, you'll have to lose a piece or something. I'm basically making this argument, and you're going, yes, I see that, but I can do this though. You know, isn't that actually the case? That'll beat you, and then that's it back and forth until someone's proven correct objectively. Yeah. So, I think it is a good analogy in that sense. It's a game of argumentation, really.
But do you feel changes within your body, like your heart rate go up or anything like that? Does that happen to you when you're having a conversation that you're passionate about with someone that really doesn't agree with you?
Yes, certainly. Everyone has to suppress, I think, that kind of thing. That is the reaction. That is the instant reaction for all of us, I think, is to instantly think, no, and like try and jump to it. And it's definitely not the right way to do it, is it? Because if you escalate that situation, then it just falls into that kind of, again, that combat, and there's nothing to be gained from that. There's really just, it jumps straight into winning.
Or do you think that's why?
So you have to kind of set aside that winning, like caring about winning the conversation so much, and try better to just let someone speak out their full mind, even if it's completely unsavory to you, or even if it's completely wrong, and you just know it in your heart. As far as you're concerned, your perspective, you just know that they're completely wrong. You're really going to gain nothing from pointing that straight out and instantly kind of chopping them down, because whatever the case may be, they think that for some reason. And it's much more beneficial for you to learn the reason behind that, so you can explore that a little bit more, ask them questions around that, you know, when did you start thinking that, how did you come to think that, you know, so you can actually learn a little bit. If you just instantly go, you're wrong, you know, this is why you're wrong, it's just obvious that people are going to put up a defence to that. Like, people instantly are going to come into this direction of walls up, defence up, and you're not going to teach them anything, and you're not going to get anything from them as well. So, but yeah, I do think that's a natural reaction that we all go through. Yeah, especially if it's something you're passionate about, especially if it's something you really feel strongly about.
It kind of gets like sort of misdirected into this fight situation. Like, I think it starts with passion, like you're like buzzing and you want to share like how strongly, and obviously you feel so strongly about it, so you want to share that and like really get that across. But then I think that's already going to get your heart rate and stuff like that up, isn't it? But then once it, I don't know, it kind of changes and gets a bit the wrong way, but you're already in this kind of fast, like, everything on the up way. Sorry, I'm not speaking very well.
Sort of elevated emotion starts coming in,
Then, so if it goes bad, that's quickly transferred to really bad, rather than just like a little bit bad.
It amplifies everything. Emotion really amplifies everything, I think, with the conversation. That is the problem. So it's like kind of your job to make sure it doesn't get too emotional, because that is what we're going to do as a reaction. So it really is important to kind of step back from that and say, I'm noticing I'm starting to feel like this, but how can I just bring that down a little bit? Because you just have to recognise people think what they think mostly in earnest. Like, they're not doing it because it's a joke. They're not doing it because
Yeah.
they think it'll annoy you, or they're not being facetious. They actually really do think that, and their reasons might be completely wrong,
Yeah.
but they obviously don't understand that. So you've got to be careful not to come at someone from like a kind of punishing sense, like they need a punishment for being so wrong. You need to come from a kind of lecturing sense, like kind of like, no, I can show you why I don't think that, and maybe you can see.
They don't like that either, but
yeah. Depends who you're speaking to. I do think there's such thing as a lost cause. I do think there's such people that there really isn't much you can do, like in terms of
there's
them.
definitely
If they don't
some people.
if they're not going to subscribe to like hearing what anyone else has to say on the matter, then I think there are certain just closed doors.
I think if you get over a certain age, you might possibly be fucked. Like if there's certain things you've not managed to find out yet, and you're like 50, then I'm not going to bother speaking to you about it, because you're not going to change like someone who's an adult, who's older than you, so they already think, well, what have you got to tell me if you're younger than me? You're just not going to change their mind, are you? You're not going to change. Like,
yeah, I think if like self-knowledge, sort of self-reflections eluded them for that long, then it's quite possible, there's not going to be anything that can really do it. And because I do think it's got to be at some point that you recognise, you look at yourself in a conversation, and like you should be looking at yourself after conversations and saying, like, how did I do there? What would I rate my performance? What could I have done better? Because you're never going to have like the perfect conversation. If it's one of these type of conversations where it's argumentative in nature, you pretty much are never going to have like the perfect conversation with someone. You probably could have done something a bit better. You probably could have worded it better, or slowed in it somewhat more. There's always improvement, and you should
ask them more questions rather than speaking so much. Yeah, and that's what I thought after that last conversation that I had. It didn't go very well. Like I couldn't sleep that night actually because of it. Even though I felt I did pretty well, like overall, but it was still going in my mind. Well, and just because it was horrible, because it was a friend, and like it was just not very nice that that's the way things ended, when it could have been a conversation. I was trying for it to not be argumentative.
Yes.
Even though we were clearly miles apart on the views.
Yes.
I didn't want it to end in like, I didn't want to be there anymore after in the situation anymore. When it started getting heated, like when it's getting kind of nasty. But that's the way it went, so I think that's why that night I couldn't really sleep, and you're thinking, like, was there anything I could do better? And yeah, there was things I could do better, but overall, I tried to slow it down. But when one person's not trying to slow it down with you, then...
It's a lot of burden on you, but it's a lot of burden on you to try and control the situation, isn't it? Yeah, because they're not coming from the same place, and also trying to keep it slow and on these slow terms, and really investigating it properly, sort of thing. So... it is a lot of work, and I do think in certain times there's not much you can necessarily do.
No,
I don't know if you should just eject those conversations. What you're meant to really do, or you meant to just say, look, I don't think we should discuss it. I don't know.
Well, what I ended up doing was saying that it's getting a bit heated. So no, I think that actually I'd said that before I stopped the conversation. But I said, like, I think it's getting a bit heated. So and then I think it went on a little bit longer. And then, thankfully, I smoked, so I was like, I'm going to go out for a fag. And then...
So that's the number one tip.
Yeah, start smoking.
Just forgo the health risks, because it's worth it to get out of awkward situations. Right?
Oh, yeah, it was a great cigarette after all that. But, and then after that, it was okay, the dust had settled a bit. But, it wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't getting better, so I think I had to kind of do some sort of removal, whether that was just like, okay, let's just like not speak about it, or remove myself from the conversation for a little while.
Right. And so what do you think of, like, we've thought of a suggestion before, of like, should we like be setting ground rules before we have conversation? Is that something you think could work? Or what's your kind of opinion of that? Should we be saying, before we start this, can we agree to some of these things, or... Because at least then the precedent is sort of set out there and openly, so that when things do sort of go off the rails, maybe you can refer back and say, we did say at the start like this, do you think maybe this is going against that, And that can kind of at least be, it's kind of more rigid, it's kind of there for them to see, isn't it? Rather than just the abstract idea, we're going to be civil because we're human beings, and sure we won't shout each other, but that doesn't work out in practice, is it? Yeah, so I mean, it's one thing in theory, but not in practice. So do you think it would be beneficial to actually say to someone, like, do you want to set out some ground rules for this, because it seems like we're going to have a conversation where we're on different sides. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I think everyone should do it in any. I think even we should do it
Mm-hmm.
if we're ever having an argument. You know, because it's good to. It's good to just, at least at the start, be on the same page and, like you're saying, set something. I mean, they even did that for the debate, the political correctness debate
Yes.
that I've mentioned before, and I
Yes.
think it's sort of 6-minute periods that you can't speak over anyone, and they obviously did that because they're aware people are shit.
It's gonna happen.
And,
Yeah.
and then still people were shit after that, but at least then you know as well, like if you've gone out of that 6 minutes or if you've spoken over with the other person, you're just wrong and you fuck you. But if you haven't, at least you've stuck to like one starting situation that's good.
Yeah, one precedent that's been set, you can at least say I've managed to keep this under track,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
And the thing is, you're both going to be not perfect, so it's, I think it is good to have a plan for when that happens, like what you're going to do.
Mm.
Yeah, even having like, so what happens if no, I don't know actually.
Mm. But do you think it's important as well to keep in mind, no matter how certain you think you become of something, that you could be entirely wrong?
Yes.
And that's so hard to keep doing that though,
I know.
and especially when it's not something that. Again, I don't think we really engage in those kind of conversations very often. It's not like you make a lot of friends or keep a lot of friends with people who you don't agree with on many things. People tend to go with the kind of path of least resistance with their friends, which is people who will accept their values, accept their beliefs, for the most part. And just because that's much more convenient, much easier, isn't it? And people want to be around people who agree
Yeah, I
with
don't
them.
want to be around people
So-
that agree with me.
Right, it just works more cohesively,
Yeah.
it seems to be. And so I don't think we get much practice at that
No,
sort
we
of thing,
don't.
to be honest, as well. But yeah, going into these, I think it is important you keep that idea of, look, I could be completely wrong,
As I
and
have
two,
been.
there's something I could like learn from this. I just go into each conversation saying, like, what could I actually learn from this conversation? Because there'll be something you can learn, even if it's very little.
Do you struggle with
you know.
that though? Picture the dumbest dumb fuck, right? Do you start a conversation with them? How much do you?
But then, if it's the dumbest person, really, like, then it's kind of like parody. You should just be viewing it as kind of like funny, like parody. If you can somehow, I know it's hard. It definitely is hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but maybe if you can just view that as kind of funny, like kind of.
But then
If
are
they're
you
so
taking it
ridiculous.
serious, though?
Because
Because then you're not really taking it that I could learn from something.
you can't take everything seriously, though. That's the problem. I think in these conversations, if someone is being like ludicrous, ridiculous with the way they're like presenting themselves in a conversation, or the things they're saying, it's not my fault if I can like laugh at some of that or find that quite funny, because maybe it is quite funny. Do you mean? But that's kind of what you're going to have to do, because what's the alternative? You don't find it funny, then you're going to get angry, sort of thing, aren't you? So.
But then is that? But don't most people, when they're speaking to someone of the opposite
Persuasion.
opinion, or do they not all think the other side's ridiculous?
But I'm not saying like to ridicule them like actively with that thought. I just mean
No, I
at
don't
least
mean
just
that.
kind of like find it a bit like, I don't even mean laugh at like what they're saying, but maybe just kind of try and change it a bit more like fun than angry, because if you don't laugh you'll greet, kind of thing.
We did actually manage that in that conversation that I've been referencing.
Right.
But it was it was more passive aggressive, sort of like we were both kind of laughing, but you could tell it was underneath, like I'll smash you.
Right.
But we're kind of like
I think it's like it's difficult. I guess it's difficult to not make assumptions of like where someone's coming from as well. That is very difficult for us to do.
especially when they regurgitate
Mm.
like if you speak to someone that everything they say is something you've heard a million times before, then it's really I think that's the most challenging time to listen to them, because you're not speaking to them.
Right, yeah, I agree with that. In terms of like, it's frustrating when you're speaking to this kind of like mask or the front interface of them rather than them, and that often is the case. You can tell like quite quickly that you're speaking to some kind of interface, some kind of front mask, some sort of wall they've put up that they're gonna have that feels the questions for them, rather than actually asking them behind that. And yeah, that can be frustrating, because you aren't really having a conversation with another person. You're sort of having a conversation with an AI, like an AI kind of thing, because you can. There's even these like chat bots that you get online,
Yeah.
and they have a conversation, and they'll have a kind of set way of answering it, where they'll kind of take a part of what you said, then put that into the sentence, and then kind of flip it back as a question or something
Yeah.
like that. And you can very easily tell that that's what's, you're talking to an AI because
Yeah.
of that, And I guess some conversations can work out feeling a little bit like you're just talking to a pre-programmed response, and that doesn't feel very fruitful, I suppose, as well. So
No,
that can get
it's
frustrating.
really,
Yeah.
hard to get anywhere with that because they're. Well, it seems to me that they have wherever they've heard this from, whatever authority that they believe, okay, that's true. Snowmen are made of lemons. Like you're not. How do you break that down when they're so? And that it seems like that belief is in all of their beliefs. So if they were to admit that that wasn't true, they would have to bring down, or it would like infiltrate into all their beliefs, which would bring them down as a whole person. It just feels like that's not gonna happen.
That's true. Like a lot of this is interlocked, sort of. A lot of the time, if this surface discussion can be linked to something very deep in them,
Yeah.
or very emotional, and I think that kind of draws back to when we say that most people do seem to be quite attached to their ideas, and almost like their ideas are them. So when you make a counterpoint to their argumentation, like you're basically attacking them, or they kind of take that as a personal attack almost. And so that is very difficult, because then how you're going to have to do some kind of scrutinizing of their ideas to be able to get anywhere with it, because you're going to have to examine them, and part of that examination is scrutiny, is investigation, isn't it? So without being able to do that, I agree it's kind of difficult, because what kind of other tools can we have other than really looking at things in that way? So
yeah, without someone being embarrassed that they might be wrong, or like, or at least feeling the threat that that could be happening.
Which, in which case, it seems difficult. That's what makes it probably so difficult to have conversations with someone that you don't know that well, especially in these cases, because it's not like you're going to give them the benefit of thinking of them as a friend, and thinking of them as like, how can I help my friend out of this ignorance, basically. If you're viewing it that way, if you think they're ignorant on this matter and that you could help show them the correct answer, then you would be trying your best. Like you would really be thinking of ways to do it, rather than just being like, oh, fuck this guy, stupid idiot,
Yeah, oh my god, I'm spending all my life on this. Because again, these conversations will be long usually, if you're going to get anywhere with them. But do you think that it would ever have been better than it is now for conflicting conversations?
It's, well, from what we seem to be seeing it, observing, is that there seems to be less conversation being had in general. There's less push for conversation, and there's definitely some amount of push for like censorship and shutting down of ideas, which just to me seems completely ineffective. Because as we said, I think we said this on the previous stream as well. Like, what kind of other option are you leaving someone if you won't let them speak? If you remove their right to speak, you basically mute them and say you cannot express what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Then what other option do you leave them? I mean, I just think that you have to have this conversation, and if you are so certain of your position to be correct, then you should be happy that you can have conversation, because you know that your truthful position will find its way out in the end. So you should be the most open to conversation. And so I'd be wary of anyone who's not open to conversation, because they're basically admitting that their position won't hold under that scrutiny, under the long-term scrutiny of many people discussing the topic. Because what other reason would you have for not wanting, if you believe you're telling the truth, you know the truth will find its way out through conversation, eventually. It might not happen straight away, because people aren't doing it the most efficient way in our conversations, but over time, you'd expect what is right to be coming out sort of through that.
I wonder if people are just not very, or it seems like people aren't very confident in speaking, but then maybe that is because a lot of it is kind of attacking. Like, although we feel like we're saying it feels like a fight and stuff, a lot of arguments are a fight, and people are actually attacking you as well as that not happening. So I think that like people have kind of learned that you're on the defense if you're in one of these conversations, or you're on the attack, because that's like the way it's kind of displayed everywhere else.
Do you also believe that it's considered that there's many simple answers, or people fancy certain questions to have a simple answer,
Yeah.
when the truth is the answer's not as simple and requires like thought.
Yeah.
So a lot of the problem is like, well, that sounds good to me. That sounds like a plausible answer, so I believe that now.
Yeah.
And that isn't an effective framework for actually working out if it's true or not, is it? If you just think, well, that sounds right, yeah, sounds good, and I can understand that, and you're simply just saying, simply kind of going with whatever makes sense to you isn't really like the best way all the time. Sometimes you've got to go a little bit further and say like, okay, it does sound correct, but if I break it down, maybe there's something to look at. Maybe there's something that's inconsistent or a flaw. So I think most people, again, with that fear of not having any answer being prevalent,
Yeah,
like not, not having to admit you maybe don't know right now and you're looking into it, isn't really the position people want to kind of be in. They kind of want to say, I know it's this, that makes sense, it sounds good, so I'm going to put all my money on that and sort of bet on that. And when something comes along that's the counter of that, I'm just going to attack it until it goes away, sort of thing, so I can be peaceful knowing that I know, sort of thing. So that, to me, again, the two main ones what we're saying is that people have that fear of not knowing, and that's a permanent curse on humanity, I think. Another one I can't remember now, but that's one of the main ones, yeah.
And so do you think, if it's possible, like, say we were having a conversation or an argument in this room and you've got the computer here, do you think people should use Google or other resources more to find definitions and stuff like this, or look up things that they're speaking about? Because it seems like a lot of the time people are arguing about things that two people have got different definitions, for starters, or one person doesn't actually know about the specific thing the other person's talking about, and they're both kind of arguing from like, or one person knows it, and it's just like, well, maybe we should actually find out first what we're talking about. If possible. Obviously, if you're outside, that's fair enough. You can't do that. Well, you could on your phone, but do you know what I mean?
Right. I think I would say, I feel when you say that, it comes to mind, yes, for definitions, but perhaps no so much for sources of information, because there's so many websites out there, and websites have many affiliations and spins on what they're reporting.
Okay,
how do you know what's trustworthy when they're bringing that point to you?
For example, the conversation that I had last, the argument.
Yes.
We were speaking about the NHS website and what it specifically said on that website.
That's fine. If you're making a direct quote.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I meant in the sense that not necessarily this, this website quoted something or made a point,
right,
and then you're using that as your reference.
Right, no.
But yes, if there's a material to be referenced, and we're just saying, look, we're talking about if this is the case, if this is the material, what do we think of this material? Then absolutely, I think it's fine to get that up on the screen and to actually go through it. Then you have the quotable material, yes. So I would agree with that, yes.
Yeah.
But what I meant sort of when I was saying no was the sense that people should be able to ask questions more, and the questioning should be enough without having to like refer to something else to kind of make your point for you.
Yeah, of course.
If you know what I mean. I understand what you're saying now as well, but I think that if you need some other thing to make a point for you because you're insufficiently making it, maybe you don't really know your point as well as you think you do. If you're having to go, well, I don't really get it, but this site tells me. That's kind of that argumentation from authority type thing going on. But no, I get what you're saying. I think if there's like source material, then absolutely you should get it up. Yeah, but I do think also people, if we're going back to most people's perspective is going to be going into this sort of discussion that they have it right and the other person is kind of ridiculous, like you said. I think people should then at least aim to humour the other side more. Just allow them to say, well, what if like this is this instead, and allow for like hypotheticals and allow for like a human of the position. Because let's just say you just absolutely know. Let's say you absolutely know squares have 4 corners, right? Because you actually do know that, right? Okay, and this other person for some reason really believes that they have 5 corners, and that's probably that's a pentagon or whatever anyway, or whatever it is, right?
Right, that's fine.
It doesn't matter for the sake of this argumentation. They think it's 5 corners to a square. And I think you should be much more open to just being like, okay, if it is, like, if they're saying that, like, so how does that work? Like, ask them questions, like, why do you think that? How does that work? And be like, right, in that case, I think this would happen, Instead of just instantly going like, that's ridiculous, shut the fuck up. Yeah. Squares have 4 corners, shut up, Because, again, they obviously don't think that, and they're not going to think that based on you just saying it. So I think it's just more, it's going to be more interesting for you, if anything, if you then just say, like, okay, well, let's assume it does have Five Corners. So what? So what do you want from that sort of thing? You know. So let them have some, like, allow them some hypothetical, or allow them some, like, position that you can then work from, just for the sake of exploring it. I think that's important too, because a lot of people might get stuck up on, as I said, if they say a square's got five corners, they go, but it doesn't though.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't though. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And then that's nothing. You're getting nothing from that. You see what I mean? So I think if you can just say, okay, and so what do you, based on that, what is it you want to say? You know.
See, what you're saying here just keeps. I keep thinking in my mind, like, yeah, we need to learn this more in schools. Because, like, you are very naturally good at speaking, and it's annoying
Right.
for anyone that isn't you.
I don't know about that, but you say so, yeah.
I mean, if I was in an argument with you, because you're just so good at, like, making points. And so you're just really good at speaking. You're very articulate, and you've always... I don't know, you're very good at speaking, and a lot of people aren't. And
okay.
I think
I'll take your word for that again.
What, do you not think you are?
I think I'm reasonably good at, getting my point across. But I think it's because I just do what you said, try and take your time and just make the more simple points, like try and just ask the more base questions than get too caught up, because I think a lot of these conversations kind of go exponentially out of control.
Yeah.
As you were sort of saying, where, like, if it goes kind of into that realm of combat, it just goes right off the charts very quickly.
Yeah, and you can't bring
and
it
it's
back.
hard to recover it. Yeah, it's hard to pull it back down. So I'd rather, like, start just by some of the base questions and try to stick to these, like, low level questions sort of thing. And just, like, I don't mind putting myself in the spot of, like, an ignorance or something so that they can explain their point to me, because it doesn't bother me putting myself in that position as much, I think, in general.
No, but I don't even
just
mean
so
much...
I can kind of go along with them teaching me something, even if I don't think they really are in reality, to be honest. It's like, just allow them the chance to try, sort of thing. But apart from that, I've got some decent ability to explain what I'm thinking, I think, or better than average.
Yeah, it's a lot better than average. And I think it would help a lot if people were taught, like, if you could teach people the way that you think about things and how you speak, like, in schools, that would just be amazing. Because, like, in the moment, schools, people are actually learning exactly what the problem is, like, not to speak. Because if you think about it, in high schools, it's like someone says something, it's like, wow, fucking owned, and then that's how people go, right, I'm not, like, getting involved in that shit. And then everyone's like, wait, you think you got owned?
It's a complete humiliation, basically, sort of thing.
But it's the same on YouTube. I mean, all these clickbait things are someone destroys feminists, blah blah blah, and it'll be like a 3-second, like, oh, you're a fucking, I don't know, some, like, little sentence that, like, completely, like, blows them out of the water. And that's kind of what that's more what we see, isn't it? It's not like we see people like you speaking about things slowly and calmly. Because
that's not very exciting. No. And, like, people, I don't think people choose their interests. I've always kind of thought that.
Yeah.
And I think that if people aren't really interested in the kind of earnest approach at finding out what's true, because it's basically is kind of a lot more calm and discussive, and, you know,
I don't think really
no one's really winning.
Sometimes.
No, because it's not very important. I've always thought that, you know, I view human beings as very much being involved in the world of motivation and incentive. So if there's not really the incentive to discover what's true, it's not going to happen. And I think that's been the case for thousands of years. Like, there's never really been a reason or a need for the truth to be found by us. So until that's required, the majority of people aren't going to be incentivized to find it.
Yeah.
They're much more incentivized by what they can gain materially, because that's obvious. Like, it's obvious anyone, if you get more stuff, then you're doing well. You're sort of, like, gathering points, and you've got more things, and you're kind of winning.
Survive.
And you survive as well. Yeah, so it's very, like, very connected and obvious and directed. But when you're a proponent of trying to find out what's true or real, what do you offer people? Well, you'll know things. Oh, okay, well, so what? You know, there's nothing really there to that, is there? Like, it's not like you say to them, well, you'll have lots of money and a house and things, and they go, oh, okay, I'll do that then. You know, that speaks to, I think, people louder than saying you'll get to know what's reality more. Yeah, it's not got any obvious incentive to it, backing it, sort of thing.
It's because it's like a long-term positive, because obviously your life will be better if you live by the truth, but people, that's a long-term investment. Because, like, at first, if you decide, okay, I'm going to look for the truth, and you do it, you're going to realise quite quickly you're a piece of shit most of the time. And that's the short term, so who wants to really go, oh, I'm a piece of shit? and then stick that out, because that needs to kind of settle, and then you can like, okay, well, how do we make that better, and then you get the long term benefits. But that short term is just going to turn so many people away.
Well, the fact is you have to start with, your many flaws. You have many
Yeah.
flaws. So you have much to be improved, and that's not like a position that anyone wants to really start in or hear.
Yeah.
When they can hear otherwise that, oh, I'm great the way I am, then it's obvious as to which is more, again, the convenient option. And without proper incentive, to me, I don't see how it will change. That's just my perception. I just don't see how it's going to change for the average person, because they need more than just, well, you should. You should is not enough for them. You should be concerned with what's true.
Shoulds not
You
enough for
should be
anything.
concerned with the improvement of yourself and all these things. It's not really enough. It should be,
It should
here's
be.
why you can, here's why you can, here's what you'll get if you do it, sort of thing,
Yeah.
So I think it's the shoulds not enough. I think the should requires some integrity. It requires some, internal desire to know these things, and I just scarcely think people basically have a choice in that. I don't think they have a choice to have moral integrity or to be interested in what's true. Or I think most people are born much the way the animals are born. They're born simply, they exist by chance to exist, and that's all.
Yeah, well, I mean, in my experience, the same as you, I've just been interested in the things I'm interested in since I was born, or since I can remember. Do you know what I mean? I've always been interested in philosophy and stuff like this, and other people aren't, so...
And what can you say? They're not.
No, I'm not going to force them, because if they fucking forced me to go and do computer studies, then
you wouldn't enjoy it. Yeah,
so
you'd
no,
say,
I'm
why
not
are you
gonna-
making me do this?
Yeah,
It's boring
exactly.
to me.
However, my bias comes in, and I feel like it's useful to maybe not the full scriptures of philosophy, like reading big philosophy books or anything like that, but like things that are useful for every person. I think could still be taught in it. Maybe a more like manageable thing, like sort of like the main psychology ideas, the main philosophy ideas that help people, like help their mental health and help all this stuff. Surely there's a way to make it more accessible to people that aren't like completely interested in it. If you put that in school from a young age, and it was more just about general humans and general human feelings and how we can be better at speaking and how we can, I think it could be better than it is. But obviously, you're not gonna make someone like love Socrates that loves football. It's not gonna happen.
That's a good point. Well, I think we should just put an end to the stream just now, because
Yeah.
no one has come on. It's actually really surprising. But
Is that Paul? Paul, is that
it's
you?
either Paul or just us watching the thing here.
What a shame if that is Paul and we've actually done this for not one viewer.
We might have just done that for no one. Actually, it might just be us viewing the live thing there. Actually, quite possible. I don't know how.
Let's
It's
go
just
find
no
out. That's
one.
crazy.
Yeah. So, but we'll just put an end to it now. Yeah, I don't know. We'll do the same time tomorrow, and anyone hopefully there'll be some more chat conversation and that. But I think it's still good. It's still interesting.
I like so.
We were saying still some good points. So hopefully some more input of what people think.
Yeah.
Maybe some like personal experiences, personal stories would be good as well. From our people. But yeah, we'll end it just now. Goodbye, no one.
Bye, no one.
Someone watching this in the future on the video, maybe.
Which
perhaps.
where did I go?
Just the
This one.
the green one.
Oh, it's because
And
it used to
then
be black.
that there, end
That's
stream.
true.